And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. According to the Women Against Crime website, it's important to remember that violence is never the victim's fault. If you are speaking to a friend or loved one you assume is a survivor of violence, never be accusatory or critical. Instead, emphasize your unconditional support and love and offer resources if possible. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2003.
30% of women currently or previously married have experienced at least one incident of physical or sexual violence at the hands of their partner. Meet one of them. Christina is a domestic violence survivor.
I witnessed everything from getting hit by hockey sticks to hammers, not being allowed to go anywhere, and then moving away and finding out that the word sorry is just a word and it doesn't really mean it's going to stop.
After growing up with an abusive parent, Christina, like so many other victims of domestic violence, saw the cycle continue in an adult relationship.
And I wanted to do everything to make this relationship work because I didn't want my relationship to be the way it had been growing up. And I wanted it to be different, and I put so much effort into a relationship.
Between 1991 and 1999, 26 women per million couples were killed by their current common-law partners. For Christina, the violence soon escalated. Yelling became hitting. All the while, Christina's family urged her to stick with her relationship. That is, until Christina's partner tried to kill her.
It had to come to the extreme for people to realize what was going on, that someone had to actually almost be killed for people to wake up and be aware of the situation.
Christina finally broke the cycle of violence using Terrace's transition house. It's a safe place for women to go when facing violence at home.
There's, several reasons why women stay in relationships, and the transition house breaks a few of those barriers for women that, stop them from leaving, and that's, it provides them a safe place to go. It provides them, support that they might not have. It provides them food. It provides them access to resources because the transition house is very well connected with resources that are helpful for women.
A woman will try to leave an abusive relationship an average of 35 times.
It was wonderful for the 2 to 3 weeks that you came back, and it was like, wow, maybe this is the way it's going to be now, and then realizing 3 weeks down the road that nothing had changed.
The influences for them to stay in the relationship are those of family, right? Everybody wants, for everybody to be happy. And, if you're married, you have this till death do we part. And the family wants to stay together and, nobody to really rock the boat. And then outside of that, we have the social influences also, like the cultural social influences, right? And those are fed through us from the media, movies, magazines, those types of things that give us the messages that, we need to stand by our partners, that it's about, commitment and endurance, and really those are the cultural influences that are keeping, women in these relationships that aren't safe for them or their children.
But Christina is free from the violence that once filled her life, and she says the transition house helped her get to where she is now.
Unless you have the support and the people that are willing to help you, there's no way of putting an end to it.
But the thing is that's really scary is that not everyone that is in these situations is necessarily reporting the crime, or are they seeking help from it.
After leaving an abusive relationship, a woman experiences a 23% loss in family income.
Checked with myself, wondering if I had done what was right But in the long run, I know it will be right, and it's very difficult to be on your own having kids. But on the other side, you think of all the yelling and the screaming and the fighting that is no longer in your life, and inside you're so peaceful. And that makes the world a difference.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thanks for staying with us. Coppers, pieces of copper hammered into the shape of a shield, were among the most valued items of the people of the Northwest Coast. The shields were often decorated with crest and designs. Each copper had a name, and its potlatch history determined its value. Let us return our archives to glimpses of Northwest Coast art at the Museum of Northern British Columbia.
The Museum of Northern British Columbia moved into the building it's in now 7 years ago. It is 3 times larger than the previous one, and it holds many treasures. The museum is constantly undergoing changes to accommodate and attract people from around the world. The summer season means more tourists and a chance to highlight the history of this area.
Because the entire structure of this one building is a modern longhouse, primarily our exhibits are based on First Nations history, Tsimshian history, also incorporating Haida artifacts, Gitxsan artifacts, as well as Nisga'a artifacts. But primarily it is Tsimshian history. Many of the artifacts do date back many years, hundreds of years. The one room that we're in today, called the Monumental Gallery, this is where we start many of our different tours. And just by looking outside these windows, you can see the harbor, the landscape of the North Coast area, of the Prince Rupert area. And we like to begin our programs here just because it ties in what we see outside the windows to the artifacts that we have and how the two are really connected.
But it's not just the one room in the museum. There are many different galleries displaying parts of Prince Rupert's history, from early development to after settlement. Jack Rattle, who settled in Rupert in 1913, was a photographer and documented the growth of the city. He and his family took over 30,000 photos. Alongside this, there is the newest addition to the museum's family.
The longhouse that we just had the grand opening in June. The longhouse itself is very significant, not only to the city of Prince Rupert, but to the Tsimshian people. Prior to the longhouse space, one thing that the museum kept hearing was that there was a need for a permanent space for dancers to practice, as well as to actually deliver their programs.
There are dances and storytelling sessions that explain the Tsimshian culture that has been in the area for over 12,000 years. The museum shows visitors the way of the Tsimshian. In here, they demonstrate it.
It's not about selling the culture, it's about introducing them to the Tsimshian nation and the way things are done amongst the Tsimshian people. So I think it's very important that that point is delivered to them, so when they go back to their countries or back to their homes, the next time they come up this way, they won't be asking, do you people still live in igloos?
We get quite a few comments about how they never expected the museum to be as beautiful or as spectacular as it was. Definitely we get comments about how it's one of the best museums that they've seen on their travels.
I think it's pretty cool because some of my family is Native and I really want to get to know some of their culture, so it's pretty interesting.
I really, really enjoy it. I've seen a few down in the Campbell River and Quadra area, but this is very interesting to see a northern band because it's quite different than what I've seen before, and I really like the difference. I've also been to Alert Bay and seen some things there, but I very much enjoy this museum.
I think the museum is wonderful. It is very interesting to see some of the different Native cultures than what we have in Ontario, and I find the totem poles fascinating to look at in the story that they tell. This is an excellent place to come and visit.
Needless to say, the museum impresses the visitors that come here, and it should be something not just Prince Rupert, but the entire Northwest be proud of. It's definitely not an abnormal sight to see a ship sailing into Prince Rupert's harbor. A ship that sailed in last week was different. This one taught the ways of the world and the ways of life at sea. The sailing vessel Concordia is a 188-foot tall ship and usually has 48 high school students swabbing the deck.
When I was 16, I was looking for a college program, and I came across this program at a college fair, and I didn't think I could ever dream to do it, but my mom said, you know what, why don't you go and do something different than your 3 older sisters? And just the thought of traveling around the world really appealed to me, and to sail is just magnificent. I'd been on a few small sailboats for fun in the summer, but I had never been at sea for long periods of time. I knew nothing coming on board, but at the same time that was all part of the adventure. You definitely have to be a person who's willing to test themselves, who's willing to take on any experience, take on any challenge, and see it through.
In the coming school year, the ship will dock in places like Brunei, Bali, Solomon Island, Fiji, Russia, and South Korea. But it's not just a year aboard a ship where you occasionally learn something about the world or learn how to sail. They take their schooling very seriously and offer courses for high school and even junior college students.
8 months is a long time to be away from home, but I think it's part of the experience, is the independence of growing up and not just being away from home, but being in foreign countries. And when I came on board, I was only 17 years old, and all of a sudden I found myself in Panama and in Mexico. And you're obviously in groups, obviously for safety reasons, but still there's a real sense of independence there. And I think it really changes you, the whole experience. It's a real growing experience.
Sarah Porter is working on board for the summer and will be a student starting in August.
I thought it would be very exciting to travel the world, have the cultural experience that you just wouldn't get in the United States, of going to Bali and Fiji and Tonga and China. And doing your land stay programs, we get to stay with people, like do homestays with people, and meeting students from around the world. Learning how to sail is a big one for me. Studying, just the whole experience of studying aboard a tall ship with 47 other students will be an interesting experience. As students and as a crew on the ship, it's not just the ship itself. It's the family that you develop while you're on board with your friends and your teachers. And you've always got your teacher right there to help you out. And your friends are always right there. If you're fighting with your friend, everybody knows. But that's what makes you bond so much. And also, when I looked at the ship before I came, I thought it was really cool. Now I know how much work and effort has to be put into a ship to keep it running.
They stopped over in Prince Rupert for just a short while, but in the year to come, 48 lucky students will get to experience many other cultures.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. A strike is the withholding of labor by workers in order to obtain better wages or working conditions. A lockout is the opposite, being a temporary shutdown of a business by an employer to compel employees to accept certain conditions. Let us return our archives to hear why the Public and Private Workers of Canada Local 4 went on strike.
Some people say the troubles began in 1995, when pulp workers in Prince Rupert went on strike just as pulp markets were at a peak. Others say the problems began earlier, when the company's owners, Repap Enterprises, were buying up properties across the Northwest. But whatever the cause, about the only thing heard at Skeena Cellulose properties across the region is the sound of municipal government slapping lien stickers on movable property, and a community picnic by unemployed workers at Carnaby. Dan Venier, virtually unknown in our region just 2 years ago, has become a household name here in the Northwest. When the BC Liberals gained power in 2001, they made no bones about the fact they planned to unload Skeena, which had been taken over by the previous NDP regime in 1998, and some say the Liberals dropped the ball on this file.
It seemed to be discussions first with one buyer, then with a second buyer. Always exclusive, which we objected to right from the beginning, because I think if all the bidders put their bids on the table, we could have dealt with it the same way they dealt with the fast ferries.
Vanier emerged after the government and European giant Mercer International failed to reach a deal. And after some tough negotiations, Vanier bought the company and then entered into often bitter talks with the unions representing sawmill and pulp mill workers. He wanted, and eventually got, huge concessions on wages and benefits in exchange for a profit-sharing plan and a promise to restart the company. The problem is, every target date he's put out for securing his financial backing has come and gone.
The story of New Skeena is really the tragedy of our town. And as much as I want to believe in the project and I want it to go forward, I have not seen anything or heard anything that is really convincing me that's going to happen.
We can understand that the city is, like all our communities, are frustrated with the delays and the fact that we've been down for a long time. So we understand where they're coming from, but we know that they want the mill up and running, the pulp mill up and running. They know they want the region to get economic activity to get started again.
This summer, the city of Prince Rupert hoped it was providing Vanier with the final puzzle piece needed to get that financing in place. It offered essentially to become a landlord of the mill and some other assets for $20 million, as long as Vanier could secure enough other backing to get things running again. Is the city acting wisely?
I think Prince Rupert, if they're going in with their eyes open, it's got to be a very, very high-risk venture, and you've sort of got some double jeopardy because you put the money in, and then all of a sudden if things do fail, you've got risk of not ever getting your money back, plus you've now got a whole bunch of your tax base that is at risk.
Council itself is certainly uneasy about all this, and there's also a very strong sense that time is running out.
You know, the municipality shouldn't be in the pulp mill business, and I still consider it to be an extremely risky venture.
It's always risky because we're a municipality. We're not in here to do business. So it really is. It needs to be secure for our community.
The city says it'll withdraw its $20 million offer if New Skeena doesn't have the rest of its financing in place by next Monday. New Skeena wants another month, but council needs convincing.
30 days doesn't seem like a lot if we can work together to accomplish something that we've also all recognize as a mutual benefit to the community.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
From 1955 to 2001, Watson Island served as a pulp mill while in its use as a weapons storage facility for the Canadian military during World War II. In 2009, the city of Prince Rupert became the unwilling owner of the site through tax default, initiating a 13-year process to redevelop the site. In this final segment of Open Connection, let us return to our archives with Don Stewart.
Even New Skeena's Don Stewart concedes the game is just about up for Vanier. But Stewart is pretty optimistic that the company is going to get the deal together, and he's not alone in that feeling.
That is that we've reorganized the business. We've taken cost out of the business. We've driven $140 or more of cost per ton of pulp out of the business, and we have a good plan. We have labor agreements in place and tariffs and in Prince Rupert. Really, we have all the things in place that should make an investor happy and willing to invest. So if we can't get it done in the next 30 days or so, we think it'll be very difficult to do for anybody to do.
The fact is they put in place some pretty good structures that should make this company operate. And if you talk to most people in the area, the fact that they got the company for such a low value means that they carry no debt load. The fact that they've negotiated good labor rates, which give them about a 20% advantage over the competitor, is a real asset. The fact that we've changed the Forest Practices Code to allow their operating structure to be a little better really positions this company to do well. The irony here is that from outside the region, people don't see it that way. They still don't see this company as being successful.
And it's that reputation that may be Vanier's biggest hurdle in trying to at last get this outfit running again.
With respect to pulp mills, historically has been one of the weaker mills and has had a history of problems. Most people in the pulp and paper industry and most analysts would argue that generally that this is a mill that probably should not start again and should not have even attempted.
However, Mason gives Vanier credit for at least trying and making some tough decisions to improve the company's chances of success. The question now is, how much longer do we wait for this to finally end, either in success or failure?
Everyone hopes that it can be, but I think that there's a lot of agreement that Mayor Pond and his council took the right stand, that regardless of what happens, there needs to be an end to this. It can't be dragging on forever and ever.
The patience in Terrace has run out. We're tired of all this, and we hope he can get it together as quickly as possible, but if he can't, then he should step out of the way.
The company insists time has not run out yet, and that Dan Vanier wants this company to flourish as much as anybody does.
Well, I can assure the citizens that Dan Vanier is very much committed, and so is George Petty, to getting these operations back up and running. They're embarrassed that they haven't been able to raise the money. They're also been working tirelessly on it, 7 days a week, and they're anxious to make it happen, just like the citizens.
Well, the first time I started drinking I was at 6.5 years old, and then I ran away from home at 10 from all the abuses I lived through.
This is where Florence ended up. Welcome to the jungle, home of the jungle people.
Jungle people are the ragamuffins that are alcoholics. They're well known as jungle people or ragamuffins, where I'm classified as the queen of the jungle.
For nearly 20 years, Flo lived in the jungle with others just like her.
I don't even know where I'm going. I don't know where it was.
It's all dark and cold and scary.
Florence is now 3 weeks sober thanks to the Kermode Friendship Society and an innovative new program called NOAA.
What happened is that when we started working with people, we realized that the numbers were way greater than we ever anticipated. We don't have the facilities in Terrace to accommodate things like we don't have a detox center. We don't have a youth facility.
And the facilities Terrace does offer, NOAA's clients aren't ready for.
We're the very first stage, very first bridging of getting our clients back into society.
I don't think I had a childhood. And with NOAA program, that little child is coming out. That little girl is coming out now and not being scared.
I took myself out because I was starting to have hallucinations and stuff.
This is Onawa, Florence's grown daughter. NOAA has reintroduced them.
Yeah, I was shocked that she was at the detox. I heard her say her name, Florence Fowler, on the speaker thing. My eyes woke up and I couldn't go back to sleep. I was happy she was there.
About 400 people still live in Terrace's jungles, and while Florence and Onawa showed us the jungle, they ran into friends who haven't yet made it out.
And then I get high with my other friends. I keep it that way.
As queen, Florence was seen as a leader.
I'd have a whole army with me by the time we get to the liquor store.
And now Florence is trying to lead them in a new direction.
The queen. I used to be the queen, but not a queen anymore. I'm just hoping I can be queen of the sober people and gather them all up. And with NOAA there, I probably would have been still in the jungle right now if I didn't go to see NOAA program.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.